What do you know about Portugal?
It's in Europe. And it's right next to Spain. And so they probably have some similarities. Mommy, I need help trying to write. I don't know what Portugal.
Oh,
What do you think, Aiden?
There, but why don't we can do that after, honey? We either do it before Uncle Drew comes on or after we talk to him, okay? Not during.
Do you know anything about Portugal, Hayden?
Did it that it's in Spain?
Okay. Well, maybe you guys should teach me about Portugal then. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah? Teach me things.
So Portugal is a really amazing country. It's really beautiful. Okay, our lesson is done.
Yeah. Sounds pretty nice. What kind of animals are there?
There are the favorite game is soccer.
That's true.
Obviously.
That's true.
And there are a lot of people in there. And there are a lot of people.
There's actually not that many people. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, but the number is like 400 and like that's big and little.
Big and little. That's like Peru. But let's talk about Portugal. So here it is on the map. Like you said, it's much smaller than Spain and right next to it. And what does Portugal have a lot of? Ocean. Tons and tons of ocean. And Portugal is actually one of the oldest countries in the world. And the capital city of Lisbon, which we'll look at some pictures of, is the oldest city in Europe. So it's been around for a long, long time. And Portugal was also the richest country in the world 300 or 400 years ago. And what they did with all this money is they built all these boats before there were airplanes. And they got on these boats and they went all over the world. In fact, they went to all these places. They went to North America, they went to South America, they went to Africa and to Asia. They went all over the world and they explored and they did trade. And this was also part of how they made money is through these trades. And so they were really the world power until something really crazy happened. There was a massive earthquake in Lisbon, in their capital. And it was so bad that 90% of their buildings collapsed.
Oh my goodness.
90%. And it happened on Halloween.
That is really
nice. Almost all of their buildings.
Almost all their buildings fell down. And well, it was a combination of a few things. It was the earthquake. So it was an enormous earthquake, one of the biggest earthquakes to ever hit Europe. And it happened on Halloween, which for them, they call All Saints Day, which is a day when they kind of go to the church and they have their candles. So they had lots and lots of candles all throughout the city. And so because of the earthquake, all the candles fell over. So not only did the buildings collapse, but everything caught on fire. And what happens when there's earthquakes sometimes near the ocean?
hurricanes.
Hurricanes, those happen, but also tidal waves. And what happened is they had buildings fall over, they had everything catch on fire, and then a giant wave came and hit the city. And so the combination of these things wiped out the whole city, and they went from being the richest country in the world to one of the poorer countries.
Wow. Do you have a question now, Hayden?
Is it a tsunami? Did the tsunami hit them?
Yep, tsunami or tidal wave. It's those both are the same concept.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy, right? Oh, and one of the things that was so bad is all of their boats were destroyed because of the wave, because they had all these boats. That's what they did with all their money, right? And so not only did it destroy the city and all their buildings, but all their boats got wrecked by the giant wave.
That is horrible. It's like
It's so bad.
That's That's like the worst storm I could ever imagine.
Yep, it was really bad.
No,
And the earthquake was so big that countries all throughout Europe and Africa felt it. And the wave, it also went and hit other countries. It was really close to Portugal, and that's why Portugal got the most damage. There were like giant holes in the ground in the city because the whole city was wobbling for like 5 minutes, and basically the street like ripped in part where you had these like 10-foot gaps where instead of a street it was just like a 10-foot hole. It was wild.
That is crazy.
It is crazy.
So scary.
Now
But-
I know what I'm going to widen down there.
So they didn't have the ability to, stay all these different places around the world when they lost all this power and influence, but they did continue to have a lot of influence in some parts of the world because they had already spread out a lot. And so even today, these countries highlighted in red, they all speak the language of Portugal, which is Portuguese. And Portuguese sounds very similar to Spanish. To your point, Quinn, it's right next to Spain, so there are definitely similarities between the two countries, including the language. The language is kind of similar. But Brazil, it's the one country in South America that speaks Portuguese instead of Spanish. All the other ones were conquered by Spain. And isn't it crazy? Look how small Portugal is compared to Brazil and some of these other countries that it took over. It's really small.
Where's Portugal?
Portugal's the little red one up here in Europe. So the population is actually only 10 million. So it's smaller than the population of Pennsylvania. Portugal's a really little country.
It's smaller than Pennsylvania. Wow.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting with Portuguese and Spanish is, as I said before, they're really similar. So if you speak to someone who speaks Portuguese but doesn't know Spanish, and you go and talk to them in Spanish, they'll actually understand some of what you're saying because like half of the language overlaps. It's very, very common. So if I came up to you and started speaking it's like two different languages. Instead of English to Spanish, imagine you went and talked to someone who only spoke Spanish, and they kind of knew what you were talking about, even though you were speaking English. That's kind of what it's like between Portuguese and Spanish. It's weird, right?
The favorite game is soccer.
That is true. Their favorite game is soccer. So let's take a look at the capital of Portugal, and it's called Lisbon. So as I said, Lisbon's the oldest city in Europe, and it is beautiful. It's right along the water, and it's very hilly, and they have these orange roofs all throughout the city. And so it's all rebuilt because most of the city was destroyed during the earthquake, fire, tsunami thing. So there's only a couple little pockets of the city that still have the old buildings, and the rest is more modern. It's also one of the sunniest countries and cities in all of Europe. They have 300 days of sun per year. It's almost always sunny, including at Christmas. And that's because it's so far south. A lot of these countries up in the north, they get really cold at wintertime. Just like over here in the US, in the north, it starts to get cold. But down in Florida, it's hot in winter oftentimes, right? And Portugal is similar. It's usually kind of warm in winter.
We didn't get enough cold weather this year, though.
No, not enough for snow at least.
We didn't have any snow. We had like 3 super tiny snows, and that's it.
Maybe next year. Maybe you'll get a lot next year.
I was hoping for a blizzard.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
So there are some really beautiful buildings.
Ooh, look at
They have this tile that it's called azulejos. I'm probably saying it wrong, but the whole outside of the building and sometimes the insides of buildings, they're very, very pretty and decorated with blue tile art. And so you just walk around the city and buildings just look like this. They're all tiles on the outside. It's very funky.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
one thing that you would be interested in, I think, is that because it's so old, there's a lot of castles in Portugal. And actually, a lot of cartoons and fairy tales are based off of a town in Portugal called Sintra, where they have lots and lots of castles up on hills. And so here are some pictures of the castles in Sintra, where they were built a long, long time ago.
what is that one that looks like a ginormous hole?
This is like a well, or a well in one of them, or like a staircase. So it was a spiral staircase, so you could go down into a cave underneath the ground. So that's Sintra. Up in the north of the country, they have their second largest city called Porto. And Porto, it is right along a river, so it's very pretty. It's also hilly, just like this. And they're known for a certain kind of wine called port wine. And it's different from most other wines in that it's like dessert wine. So you drink just a little bit of it, and it's really, really sweet. It's like candy. Whereas, most wines, they are more like grapes, and this one's like, it's also from grapes, but it's really, really sugary.
I didn't realize that's where port wine got started. That makes sense.
It's actually almost all grown in the Douro Valley, which is right outside Porto. And this is the Douro Valley. So it's the same river that goes right through the city. It's just if you go in to the country a little bit, it's all fields. Quite pretty.
Wow.
Yeah. And down in the south, along the coast, they have what's called the Algarve, which is their sort of beachy area, and they have really, really funky rocks. And the rocks have weird holes in them sometimes, like this, where you can go in and there's beaches inside a cave where you can see the sand and there's water and then these holes.
That one has a heart in it.
You see a heart in the rock?
Yeah, look at that one. See, look.
Oh, I see. This one down here.
There. It's under the city. It's under the city.
Pretty funky.
The hut is under the city.
So pretty.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's really unique about Portugal is they have a lot of cork trees. Do you know what cork is?
The little things that you put into wine bottles. They're like caps.
See, that's how most of the world uses them. Most of the world uses them as caps for wine bottles. But it comes from the bark of these trees. You can see, like, the outside has been taken off of it down here, but the bark, which is this part up at the top, they take that off, and that's what they use to make the cork. And in Portugal, they use it for more than just wine corks or wine caps. They use it for all kinds of products. So they'll make shoes, they'll make purses, they'll make umbrellas. They make all kinds of things out of cork. Look at this, umbrellas and bags made of cork.
I think I've seen bags and like shoes before, but I've never seen an umbrella.
Yeah.
Like,
pretty funky. The national flower of Portugal is lavender. Do you guys like lavender? It's pretty and smells nice. They don't have too many different or interesting animals. It's kind of the same sorts of animals you would see in Pennsylvania. They love soccer. Surprise, surprise.
Obviously.
They have one of the best soccer players in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo. And they've been one of the best teams as well. So Spain, Argentina, Brazil, and Portugal, they really love soccer. So this is a big soccer week. All of them love soccer. Much more common in Europe and South America than it is in Asia. One of the things they like to eat, and they're really, really good at cooking are baked goods. And in particular, they have one called pastel de nata. And what it is it's like a little piece of bread. Imagine like a donut, but instead of being just a big donut, inside the middle, they put pudding. You know vanilla pudding? Yeah, so these are like vanilla pudding inside half of a donut. It is super yummy.
Yum.
Super duper yummy. And the other one that I really, really liked is called Pão de Deus, which means God's bread. And basically what it is it's like a piece of bread or a roll that has coconut and sugar on top of it. So have you ever had coconut flavored things?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's like a coconut flavored bread, and it's really yummy.
Sounds delicious.
It was so good. I had a lot of it. They also have one of the longest bridges, well, the longest bridge in all of Europe. It just takes forever to drive across. Look how big this thing is.
How long?
It's like, I don't know, I think it took like 6 minutes to drive across.
I don't like super long bridges with small edges over a big thing like of water.
Yeah, a little
I like
scary.
the super small ones. That's like cool, but
Right.
that's really long.
Because that means if you drive, it feels like you're gonna fall off.
Yeah. I feel like the bridge
Yeah.
is just gonna all of a sudden crack when we're going over it, and then we're just gonna fall into the water.
Yeah.
It scares me so much. I don't like it.
Yeah, I used to have that too. I used to get scared of the long bridges, but the people who build the bridges are like the smartest people in the world. They're really, really good at building things. They're like the same
Good.
people who make the cars and the airplanes. And so they make them really, really, really strong so that there won't be those kinds of issues.
Good, but it still scares me.
I
Big
agree.
one mark.
Another fun fact is that Portugal holds the world record for the world's largest omelet. They made an omelet that weighed 6,000 pounds. Look how many people there are.
Egg filled with stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah. Look at that. How massive it is. So much egg. And I can show you some photos from my trip when I was there. So this was the castle I went to, or one of the castles, and you can see it's all the way up on the hill. So the ocean's over here, and they build the castles up on the hill so that if any invaders came to try and steal their things, they had an advantage from being high up because they could see the people coming and they could throw things at them. So it was very hard to take over a castle. So castles are usually built on top of a hill, and when they aren't on top of a hill, that's when they build a moat, so people can't easily get to it.
What is a moat?
A moat is
Like a
like
river going.
water
Yes.
surrounding a castle,
What?
like this. Doo-doo. Like that, where it's a castle with water all around it, so you can't easily get into it.
But there's a bridge.
There's a bridge so the people who are inside the castle have a way to get in and out, but then you only have to defend one place instead of people being able to try and get in from everywhere.
Is it a drawbridge?
Usually it's a drawbridge too, yeah, so they can bring the bridge up so then no one can come in.
Yeah.
All right. And one of the things that was really fun about when I was in Portugal last year is I had a lot of friends come to visit me. And so there were like 10 or 15 different friends that came. So you'll see a lot of my friends in the different pictures here. This is a picture of the big castle from further away and one of the older castles. Not quite as pretty because it's so much older. This is me on the side of the castle being crazy because I'm a crazy person.
Uncle Drew, that's terrifying. Don't be like Uncle Drew in this way.
What if you fell off? You would die.
It wasn't so far, but I was pretty in control. But yeah, just lots and lots of castles. Castles, castles, castles all throughout the city or the country. And then this is from within Lisbon. So you can see it's super hilly. This is where I lived. This was my neighborhood. So I was in one of these houses up here. And then this was sort of a lookout area. And from the lookout area, you could see all over the city. So you see the water, you see a bridge. And this bridge actually looks identical to the bridge in San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. It was the same designer. They made the same bridge. So it's both in Portugal and in San Francisco. Do you see these locks on the side of the fence?
Yeah.
Oftentimes people like to do that in cities, and it's a way that usually it's something that you do with someone that you love, and you put the lock on a bridge or on a fence as a way to sort of seal your fate together. So you like put your initials on the lock and then lock it to something.
Do you still have the key to open it?
Usually you're supposed to leave it there and you're not supposed to ever go get it.
And why do you do that? Why do you have to put it there if you love somebody?
You don't have to put it there to love somebody, but it's something that you do to show, to have like a thing that you remember together. I don't know, what's a good analogy for this, Rach?
Oh, yeah, I think that's in my.
Wait, so there's a little note inside that will make you remember?
Well, you would put your initials on it. So you might put like, it wouldn't have to be for like getting married. It could be Quinn and Hayden, because you guys care so much about each other and you're like, we're going to be best friends forever. Let's put a lock here so that it's like a symbol of our friendship. Because just like a lock is strong and it stays firm together. And so it's just like our friendship.
So you would write Quinn and Hayden on the lock?
Yep, or Q plus H.
Yep.
Can I get the thing when he's done talking?
I don't know what thing you're talking about.
The Atlas Guide book thing. I think
Here
I
it is.
heard Malacca.
Here, let's look at this. I'll look through your book to see if I can find it in there, okay? But for now, pay attention to Uncle Drew.
The colorful locks.
So one of the things that the city has is what are called trams, which are these like buses that are connected to electric wires. And they do this because it's so steep. And back before they had like buses and cars, they would use these to transport people around the city.
Is that why there's
so
so much string up there? Why is there so much string up there?
They're metal wires, and it both keeps it on track, and also they're electrically powered. So there's electricity that they can connect to up there.
And for the houses so the lights can stay on.
Yeah, that too. And here's another one that you can see going uphill. This is an old one, and it has a bunch of graffiti on it. But you can see the tile on the walls and how this might be used to go up and up and up the steep hill. They are also a very artistic city. This is an octopus that was made out of trash that washed up on shore. And they do all kinds of cool art. So they do art on the sides of walls. And here's another one.
Why is there a heart in the middle of that?
The artist made a heart. Are you ever creative with your art projects and make things up with your imagination? This is an artist who decided to do something with a heart.
At the end, I'll give you.
And
That's pretty.
The frog or the heart?
Yeah, we'll see.
The heart picture with the fairy.
Yeah.
it's a frog. It's a frog.
Yeah. They had frog art. They had a fox on the side of a building. This is a bumblebee on the side of a green building. So it was very fun to see such beautiful things just on the sides of buildings. This is an eagle holding a briefcase. and some other art. And one of the things that's really cool in Lisbon and a lot of cities around the world now is they all have scooters. So people who live in the cities, they have these scooters that you can rent. And so I walk up to it with my phone and I scan the scooter. It has a little like electronic chip, and my phone is linked to my credit card, and I can unlock the scooter just right from my phone, and then I get on it and it's electrically powered. And so you can ride scooters all around these cities.
And then it's yours forever.
It's yours until you stop. Once you stop, then it charges you for, if I used it for 10 minutes, it was $1. If I used it for 20 minutes, it's $2. So for however long you use it, it'll charge you. So if you kept it forever, it would get really expensive. This was at a vegetarian restaurant I went to. It was a person made of vegetables. So here we are on the coast. This was one of my friends who came to visit. Another vegetable.
I like that one better.
This one was super cute. It reminded me of Shelby because the face kind of looked like Shelby.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
I sent this to Shelby when I came across it last year.
It weirdly does look like him, actually.
I know, like it really does. I was like, Shelby, you're on the sign.
Here, you're following me.
Yeah.
But it has a dress on. He has a dress.
I think it's supposed to be a little girl.
And he's tiny.
Yeah.
And he's tiny.
Here's a church that has some of the tiles on it and two of my friends. This was inside the train station, so they had art even at the train station. So cool. Out in Douro Valley, where they grow the wine.
They grow wine.
Well, they grow grapes, and then they make wine out of grapes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Here's the beach. And this guy is standing on his arms because he's crazy. He was walking around like that on his arms, just walking up and down. Yeah, seriously. And this design that's on the tile, see how the tile is kind of like waves?
Yeah.
That same style is in Brazil, and it's in Asia in a city called Macau. It's all around the world, wherever Portuguese have had some influence. They have the same design.
You've been to Asia before?
He's there right
I'm
now.
in Asia. So I've been to China, and I've been to Japan, and right now I'm in Taiwan.
Taiwan is in Asia?
It is.
Yeah,
It
Asia's
is, yeah. It is a big, big area.
Ooh.
Pretty, yeah?
Ooh.
This was called spaghetti ice cream. It was ice cream that they put through like this machine so it comes out and looks like spaghetti. And that looks like cheese on top of it, but it was actually like an ice cream thing. Weird, right?
What?
Does not look good.
Is there spaghetti on it?
It's spaghetti ice cream. It's ice cream that looks like spaghetti. See, it's melting over on the side.
It was all
Not
ice cream
actually.
made to look like spaghetti, even though it's all ice cream.
Yeah, but what is the stuff on it?
Ice cream
It's all ice cream.
and sugar.
Yep.
Wait, the yellow stuff
Oh,
is
I
ice.
think it's again.
That's me being crazy.
Ah.
And this is my friend Paul being crazy. He was jumping over a bunch of water.
Did he make it?
And my friend Gina, he did make it.
Wait, he did? He did?
He made it. Yeah, he made it. He's very
It
very
looks like he
talented.
would have. It looks like he was just jumping into it.
Yeah, he was just starting his jump.
I would not have
No.
done that.
Neither would I.
Which one's
So
Paul?
yeah, these are all my different friends who came to visit, and that was me with a crazy haircut. And that's everything I have for today.
How do we end the lesson?
Okay.
Should we clap again?
Hey, you can't clap for yourself. That's against the rules.
I was clapping for you for being such good students.
Oh.
I Are you clapping for yourself now? I thought that was against the rules.
I'm clapping for you.
Oh, I got a second round of applause. Very nice. What was your favorite part about Portugal?
I like everything.
Everything.
I liked feet.
Hey,
You
for
like
real though, he
feet?
wants to know what was your favorite thing about Portugal?
Everything. I
Quick,
like
let's say
everything.
one thing
I
that
don't
you
have
liked.
a
You know, it
favorite.
doesn't have to be your favorite, but say one thing you liked, if that was interesting.
the storm. I didn't like it, but
It was crazy. Crazy story.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have like wanted to be there.
No, definitely not. So what do you think? Do you like Portugal more or less than Peru and Argentina?
I like it.
I like it the same.
Yeah.
Where would you rather go if you got to go to either Portugal or to Peru or Argentina?
I would go to Argentina.
Why?
Peru. Either Argentina or Peru.
Why?
Because
Because isn't a reason. You need to be because, and then you say more afterwards.
Because
I
it's
don't
beautiful?
Like,
The most beautiful?
and
Because there's llamas?
because there's tons of animals and I love animals.
Yeah, Portugal is not where you would go for animals. Although they do have a big aquarium. So if you like fish,
Oh, that's cool. We like aquariums.
it's one of the best aquariums in the world.
Hey guys, I think we lost our minds.
I think they've had too much pastel de nata or spaghetti ice cream.
Have you eaten too much spaghetti ice cream? Is that the problem?
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty, y'all.
Bye.
Love you.
Ciao.
Ciao.